The sun hovered just above the horizon, casting long molten shadows across the desert sands. The oasis, that elusive mirage, no longer stood before them in full breathtaking glory, a verdant jewel amidst the endless dunes. Yet, even as the team gathered at its edge, the golden light began to wane, and with it, the oasis itself seemed to tremble on the brink of disappearance. Jonathan Crane stood at the forefront, his lean figure silhouetted against the slowly dimming glow. His sharp eyes, weathered and bright, scanned the shimmering water and lush palms that had once seemed an impossible dream. Around him, Leela Hassan moved with quiet urgency, her sun-kissed skin flushed with exertion and hope. Dr. Marcus Finch adjusted his glasses, his aged face etched with a mix of disbelief and reluctant acceptance. Behind them, Alina Cruz moved steadily, tending to the weary and injured, her calm presence a steady anchor. "It's starting," Leela whispered, voice tight with emotion. "The illusion's unraveling." Jonathan nodded, swallowing a lump in his throat. This was the moment they had chased through blistering days and starless nights, through sandstorms that threatened to bury them forever. And now, as the sun dipped toward the horizon, the oasis began to fade, the vibrant greens blurring into the desert's dusty gold, the water's surface shimmering like a fragile veil being drawn tight. He reached out, fingertips grazing the once cool water. It rippled, then shimmered, losing substance as if dissolving into the air itself. The palm fronds rustled softly, then stilled, their vibrant colors muted until they matched the surrounding sands. "We have to move," Jonathan said, voice firm despite the ache in his chest, "before it's gone entirely." Leela nodded, steadying herself as Jonathan offered a hand. "I'm right here," she said, gripping his arm with a strength born of shared trials. Marcus took a final, lingering glance, lips pressed into a thin line. "I never believed in such things," he murmured, "but what we've witnessed, it's beyond science." Alina rounded up the team, her eyes scanning for any signs of danger as the landscape shifted eerily. The oasis was retreating, pulling back into myth like a tide withdrawing beneath the desert moon. Together, they began their trek away from the place that had both promised salvation and demanded sacrifice. The sand crunched beneath their boots, the air cooling rapidly as twilight surrendered to night. Above them, the stars began to prick the velvet blackness, indifferent witnesses to human ambition and loss. Jonathan's thoughts swirled with memories, the friends lost, the battles fought, the secrets uncovered. The oasis's vanishing was no defeat. It was a revelation. Immortality was not a prize to be seized, but a legacy to be forged in the hearts and minds of those who dared seek it. The desert night wrapped around them, vast and silent, as they moved forward, changed, humbled, yet unbroken. Jonathan cast a last glance toward the horizon, where a faint glow lingered like a promise. The chase was over, but the journey had only just begun. "We carry its story now," he said softly, "and that is immortality in itself." Lila smiled, her eyes reflecting the first light of dawn breaking on the edge of the world. Underneath this desert moon, legends live forever. As they disappeared into the vastness, the oasis shimmered one final time, a fleeting dream retreating into the sands, guarding its eternal secret until the desert called it forth again. And beneath the vanishing light, the desert whispered its timeless song, a melody of hope, sacrifice, and the endless chase. The dawn broke over the desert like a soft promise, spilling golden light across the endless dunes that stretched beneath the cocaining sky. Dr. Jonathan Crane sat silently atop a wind-sculpted ridge, the cool morning air stirring the loose grains of sand at his feet. His gaze swept the horizon, where the desert met the waking world, colors shifting from the deep indigo of night to the gentle hues of day. Every sunrise seemed to carry the weight of eternity here, a reminder of time's relentless passage amid the timelessness of this vast, unforgiving land. His face, weathered and marked by months under the merciless sun, bore the marks of his journey lines etched by hardship, exhaustion, and the burden of reflection. For the first time in what felt like an age, Jonathan was not consumed by the frantic chase for the lost oasis, nor was he haunted by the shadows of past failures. Instead, a quiet understanding had settled within him, a profound revelation about the nature of immortality and the legacy he had sought all along. Behind him, footsteps approached softly over the sand. Leela Hassan emerged from the subtle folds of the dune, her silhouette outlined by the soft pastel sky. Her sun-kissed skin glowed warmly in the early light, and her intense eyes held a mixture of fatigue and something gentler, shared recognition of the journey's end. Moments later, Dr. Marcus Finch joined them, his older frame stooped slightly with weariness. Glasses perched unevenly as always, but his expression softened with a rare, genuine smile. "Beautiful morning," Lila said quietly, settling beside Jonathan on the cool sand. "Hard to believe this place was once a nightmare for us all." Jonathan nodded slowly, his voice low but steady. "It still is, in many ways. The desert doesn't forgive, but it teaches." Marcus adjusted his hat against the sun's growing warmth and added, "I never imagined I'd witness something so incredible. The oasis, the illusions, the ancient guardians, everything challenges what I believed possible." Jonathan's eyes met theirs, the shared experience binding them in a silent, unspoken understanding. "For so long, I thought immortality was about defying death itself, finding a way to live forever, to escape the end. But what I've come to realize is different. Immortality lies in what we leave behind, in the stories, the discoveries, the changes we inspire." The three sat in contemplative silence, the desert around them alive with the subtle sounds of morning, the whisper of wind through sparse scrub, distant bird calls, the faint shifting of sand. Their memories echoed between them, the relentless chase beneath the blistering sun, the mirages that tested their minds, the ancient temple's riddles, the fierce battle with Malik under the desert moon. Jonathan's thoughts drifted to the faces of the comrades they had lost, to the sacrifices made and the lessons etched indelibly into their souls. He recalled the look in Malik's eyes during their final confrontation, man consumed by greed and desperation, blinded by a desire he could not fulfill. It was a stark contrast to the peace he now sought. "I've started a journal," Jonathan confessed, pulling a weathered notebook from his pack, "to capture everything, the truths and the myths. Not just for me, but for those who come after. A record that honors what we found and what we chose to protect." Leela smiled softly, her usual sharp wit softened by the moment's gravity. "It's a legacy worth preserving. The desert has been cruel, but it's given us something far greater than treasure. It's given us purpose." Marcus nodded in agreement, and maybe a lesson in humility. Not every mystery is meant to be unraveled. Not every prize is meant to be possessed. Sometimes, the greatest discovery is understanding why some things must remain hidden. Jonathan closed his eyes briefly, breathing deeply the dry, warm air. The desert, with all its endless horizons and shifting sands, had become a mirror reflecting his own journey, one of ambition, loss, growth, and ultimately acceptance. As the sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows and igniting the sand with fiery brilliance, Jonathan felt the weight of his obsession lift. He was no longer a man chasing a fleeting dream of physical immortality, but a guardian of a legacy that transcended time. The stories they would tell, the wisdom they would share, and the respect they would foster for the mysteries of this ancient land would echo beyond their lifetimes. Even as the oasis remained hidden once more, cloaked by its ancient illusion, Jonathan knew that its true power was not in granting eternal life, but in inspiring those willing to seek beyond the surface, to look inward and find what truly endures. The desert wind stirred again, carrying with it the faint scent of distant blooms and the promise of new beginnings. Jonathan stood, brushing sand from his hands, and looked once more toward the horizon. "We have a responsibility now," he said, his voice steady with resolve. "To protect this place, to honor those who came before us, and to ensure that the legacy we leave is one of respect, knowledge, and hope." Leela and Marcus rose beside him, their faces illuminated by determination and quiet pride. Together, they would carry the story forward, etched not just in sand and stone, but in the hearts of those who dared to dream beneath the desert moon. As the morning sun bathed the dunes in light, Jonathan felt a sense of peace settle over him. The chase was over, but the journey, the true journey, had only just begun. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of time and memory, the desert whispered its eternal secrets, waiting patiently for the next soul brave enough to listen. The sun had long dipped below the horizon when the battered expedition team finally reached the small desert outpost marking the boundary between the wild, untamed sands and the semblance of civilization. Their arrival was met with curious stares from weathered traders and local villagers, faces etched with a mixture of suspicion and wonder at the ragged travelers who emerged from the desert's grasp. Jonathan Crane's lean figure moved steadily through the gathering crowd, his weather-beaten face marked by the harsh journey, eyes still sharp but shadowed by the weight of what they had endured and discovered. Lila Hassan walked beside him, her athletic frame carrying the same exhaustion, yet her eyes retained a fierce intensity born of survival and purpose. Behind them, Marcus Finch adjusted his glasses, looking every bit the weary academic who had journeyed far beyond his usual comfort zone. Alina Cruz, ever the vigilant medic, scanned the crowd quietly, ready for any sign of trouble but hoping for calm. The outpost was alive with low murmurs and the clinking of cups in the modest tavern where the team decided to regroup. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of spiced tea and dust, the dim yellow glow of lanterns casting long shadows on the cracked plaster walls. The four sat around a rough-hewn wooden table, their faces illuminated by flickering candlelight, each caught in their own storm of thoughts. Jonathan broke the silence first, voice low but firm. "We've seen things no one else has. The lost oasis, the ancient temples, the trapsits, all real. But the world isn't ready for this. If the secret gets out, Moloch's kind will tear it apart for greed and power." Leela nodded, her gaze unwavering. "Our duty isn't just discovery, it's protection. The desert guards its mysteries, and so must we." Marcus, ever the skeptic, sighed deeply. "I spent years debunking myths, yet here I stand, forced to believe in things I never imagined. But I agree some truths are too dangerous to share." Alina added quietly, "We owe it to those we lost to honor their sacrifice by keeping this safe." The conversation turned to the practicalities of how to present their findings. They would release only fragments of artifacts, historical context enough to satisfy curiosity, but not enough to reveal the oasis's location or power. It was a delicate balance, one that left them all uneasy but united. Later, Jonathan found himself wandering the bustling city streets alone, far from the desert's vast silence. Neon signs flickered overhead, Car horns blared in the distance, and the chatter of the crowd was a relentless backdrop to his swirling thoughts. The stark contrast between the city's chaos and the desert's haunting stillness pressed upon him. He recalled the endless dunes, the shimmering mirages, the temple's shadows, and the oasis's fleeting beauty beneath the desert moon. A pang of melancholy gripped him. He had sought immortality, a legacy beyond the grave. But now he understood that true immortality was the impact one left on the world, the memories, the lessons, the lives touched. The secret of the oasis was a burden and a gift, one that demanded sacrifice. Days later, the team gathered at a small museum where some of their recovered artifacts were displayed. The modest exhibition drew a handful of scholars and curious visitors, but none knew the full story. Jonathan, Leela, Marcus, and Alina stood together, their eyes meeting with a silent understanding. The pact they had forged was unbreakable. Protecting the oasis meant protecting a piece of humanity's soul. As visitors admired the ancient relics, the team's thoughts drifted back to the desert, the endless chase, the mirages that haunted their memories, and the fragile line between myth and reality. Though they returned to the world of men, a part of them would always remain beneath the desert moon, guardians of a secret too precious to share. Jonathan's voice, when he spoke, was barely above a whisper. Some treasures are meant to remain hidden. Our journey doesn't end. Here it begins anew, in how we choose to remember and protect what we found. Leela smiled faintly. The desert will always call to us. Marcus adjusted his glasses, a rare softness in his eyes. And perhaps one day the world will be ready. Alina nodded, her resolve steady. Until then, we keep the secret safe. As the museum lights dimmed and the last visitor left, the team lingered a moment longer, bound by the unspoken promise. Outside, the desert wind whispered through the night, carrying with it the eternal mysteries of the lost oasis and the endless chase beneath the desert moon. The journey had changed them forever, and while the world moved on, they knew the true story was theirs alone to hold a testament to sacrifice, legacy, and the fragile beauty of secrets kept. But somewhere deep inside, Jonathan felt the faint stirrings of a new hope, a whisper that the desert's legend was far from over, and that beneath the shifting sands, new adventures awaited those brave enough to seek them. The sun had dipped low, casting long shadows over the barren landscape as the surviving members of the expedition gathered near the edge of the desert. The air was cooler now, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of dry earth and distant vegetation, signaling their approach back to civilization. Around a modest campfire, their faces flickered with orange light, each line and scar etched by the harshness of the journey made softer by the glow and shared warmth. Jonathan Crane sat on a roughly hewn rock, his eyes tracing the horizon where the last light clung desperately to the dunes. It was a stark contrast to the turmoil and tension that had gripped him just days before at the oasis. Beside him, Leela Hassan adjusted the straps of her worn satchel, a faint smile touching her lips as she listened to Marcus Finch recount a particularly amusing mishap involving a misread map and a sudden sand gust. Alina Cruz, ever the steady presence, passed around small portions of water and food, ensuring no one was left wanting. "You know," Marcus said, his voice rough but warm, "I never thought I'd see the day when I'd call a mirage beautiful. But out there, it's hard to deny the desert's strange, haunting allure." Lila chuckled softly. "It's a harsh beauty, but one that demands respect. I'm glad you've come to see it that way." Jonathan looked at the faces around him, marked by exhaustion yet alight with a quiet strength. "This place has changed us," he said thoughtfully. "Not just physically, but in ways we could never have anticipated. The desert strips away pretense and leaves only what is real: our fears, our hopes, and the bonds we forge. Leela nodded in agreement. It's those bonds that will carry us forward, even when we're miles apart. Silence fell for a moment, the crackling fire and the faint whisper of the wind the only sounds. Jonathan's gaze drifted to the stars, beginning to twinkle overhead. We've all faced our demons here, he murmured, and somehow we found each other amid the endless dunes. Alina leaned forward, her eyes bright. I think that's the greatest treasure we've uncovered. Not the oasis or its secrets, but the trust and friendship that helped us survive. Marcus, usually the skeptic, smiled softly. I suppose there's more to this world than just facts and figures. Sometimes, the experiences that defy explanation are the ones that stay with us the longest. As the night deepened, the group shared stories, both harrowing and humorous, from their time in the desert. They laughed, sometimes quietly, sometimes with a burst of genuine joy, the sound a balm against the memories of loss and hardship. Jonathan found himself opening up about his fears and regrets, and in turn, the others revealed their own vulnerabilities. It was a moment of healing, a testament to the resilience born of shared struggle. Later, standing side by side, Jonathan and Leela watched as the horizon glowed faintly with the last vestiges of twilight. The desert moon rose slowly, casting a silver sheen over the dunes. We've come so far, Lila said softly, and yet it feels like this journey is only just beginning. Jonathan met her gaze, the weight of everything they had endured and learned reflected in his eyes. No matter where we go from here, the desert's memory will stay with us. It's part of who we are now. The others joined them, and together they stood in companionable silence. The vast, star-studded sky overhead, a reminder of the infinite mysteries still waiting beyond the horizon. As the fire's embers dimmed, they embraced an unspoken promise that though the paths ahead might diverge, the bonds forged beneath the desert moon would remain unbreakable. With the dawn approaching, each prepared to leave the wilderness behind, carrying with them not just the stories of a lost oasis, but the unseen ties that would forever link their hearts and destinies. And as they parted ways, a renewed sense of hope and purpose stirred within them, a quiet assurance that the desert's lessons would guide them through whatever challenges awaited. But even as they stepped back into the world they once knew, the desert whispered still a reminder that some bonds, like the sands themselves, are eternal, shifting yet steadfast, unseen yet deeply felt. And in that truth, they found strength for the road ahead. The endless chase had forged more than memories. It had created a family, bound not by blood, but by the trials and triumphs of a journey beneath the desert moon. And as the first rays of sunlight kissed the horizon, Jonathan whispered a vow to honor those bonds and the legacy they carried. The adventure was far from over, it had only transformed, promising new horizons and unseen challenges, but always with the steadfast heart of the desert at their core. We'll meet again, Lila said, her voice steady with conviction. Jonathan smiled, the desert moon fading, but its light forever etched in their souls. Until then, we carry the desert with us wherever we go, whatever we face. And with that, they turned toward the awakening world, ready to face whatever lay beyond the dunes, forever connected by the unseen bonds of their shared odyssey. Under the vast canopy of stars, the desert night held its breath as Jonathan Crane sat alone on the rough-hewn bench outside the small outpost. The flickering lantern cast long shadows on the cracked adobe walls, painting the place with a restless, gold-tinged glow. Around him, the desert whispered in the wind, a sound both ancient and alive, as if carrying echoes of forgotten tales. The note lay unfolded on his lap, its edges frayed and stained with the dust of time. The parchment was unlike any Jonathan had encountered before, inscribed with a script that twisted and curled in unfamiliar ways, woven with symbols that seemed to shimmer faintly in the lantern light. His heart thudded in his chest, a mixture of excitement and unease, tightening his breath. Leela Hassan and Dr. Marcus Finch approached, drawn by the soft rustle of paper and the weight of the moment. Lila, intense eyes softened as she crouched beside him, her fingers brushing lightly over the cryptic writing. "Where did you find this?" she asked, her voice low but steady, the desert night cloaking her words in mystery. "Left at the outpost's supply cache," Jonathan replied, eyes never leaving the note. "No sender, no indication of who might have been here before us. But this feels like a message meant for us, or for me." Marcus adjusted his glasses, the skepticism etched on his face, giving way to a flicker of curiosity. If authentic, it could mean the Oasis's legend is far from over. But it could also be a trap or a hoax. We must be cautious. Jonathan nodded, acknowledging Marcus's caution, but unable to suppress the spark of hope kindling within him. The quest that had consumed years of his life, the chase that had driven him across unforgiving sands and through treacherous ruins, suddenly felt alive again. As the trio gathered closer, Lila traced the patterns with steady fingers, recognizing fragments of ancient dialects layered beneath the cryptic surface. "These symbols," she mused, "they speak of guardians, of a cycle that never truly ends. The Oasis, it's more than a place. It's a legacy." The desert wind picked up, swirling grains of sand around the outpost like restless spirits dancing in the moonlight. Jonathan's gaze lifted to the horizon, where the dunes rolled endlessly beneath the star-studded sky. The silence between them held a shared resolve, a promise to face whatever truths awaited beyond the shifting sands. "We thought the Oasis vanished with the sunset," Jonathan said quietly, "but maybe it was never meant to be found. Maybe it's meant to find us when the time is right." Marcus leaned forward, the firelight flickering across his thoughtful face. "If that's true, then this message is a call, a summons to continue, to uncover what lies beneath the myths and mirages." Leela smiled faintly, the desert's harshness etched in the lines of her face but tempered by hope. "Then we prepare, because the desert still has stories to tell, and it looks like our story isn't finished yet." As the night deepened, the outpost faded behind them, the message burning bright in their minds. Beneath the desert moon, the whisper of the sands carried with it a promise that the chase was eternal, and the secrets of the lost oasis waited patiently for those brave enough to listen. Jonathan stood once more, the weight of the past lifting even as the future beckoned. With Lila and Marcus at his side, he felt the pulse of the desert's heart, wild, untamed, and full of endless possibilities. And somewhere, just beyond the horizon, the desert whispered back,